My sister collapsed from her chronic pain right as I announced my promotion. But then I handed her the video I'd taken 20 minutes earlier. For 5 years, my little sister had been stealing my life, piece by piece. And she did it all from a sickbed that only existed in her mind. The final theft happened last Sunday, the moment I announced my promotion. But this time I was ready. This time I had the receipts. The applause was still ringing in my ears when I saw her begin her performance. I kept the smile plastered on my face, accepting back pats and hugs from my uncles and cousins, but my eyes were locked on Emma. She was at the far end of the long dinner table, pushing mashed potatoes around her plate with a fork. For a single, fleeting second, I almost thought she looked happy for me. But I knew that face better than my own. I saw the exact moment the mask began to slip into place, a tiny tightening around her eyes, a subtle stiffening in her shoulders as she scanned the room and saw everyone focused on me, on my success. Right on cue, her fork clattered softly onto her plate. Aunt Sandra, sitting beside her, leaned in and asked if she was okay. Emma gave a weak, brave little shake of her head, the kind that was meant to signal she was suffering but trying to be strong. I kept talking to Uncle Pedro, spinning elaborate lies about a job promotion that didn't exist, a raise I hadn't received, and responsibilities I would never have. Part of my brain was a silent countdown clock. 3, 2, 1. Like a precision instrument, her hand flew to the right side of her abdomen. A low, pained sigh escaped her lips, perfectly pitched to cut through the chatter. My cousin Marcus, mid-sentence about his new job, stopped and turned to her. "Emma, you all right?" "It's nothing," she murmured, but loud enough for half the table to hear. Her voice was a masterclass in feigned vulnerability, brave, yet trembling just enough to evoke instant concern. Just a little pain. And so the familiar ritual began. The conversations around us died down one by one, the energy in the room shifting from celebration to anxiety. My mother's laughter from down the table cut off abruptly. I saw the familiar panic dawn on her face, the same panic Emma could conjure on demand. "Emma, my love, what's wrong?" Mom was already half out of her chair, her napkin fluttering to the floor. "It hurts, Mom," Emma whispered, her voice quivering with artful precision. "Right here. It just came out of nowhere." My dad shifted into practical mode. "What kind of pain is it? Sharp? Dull?" "It's a deep, dull ache," she said, closing her eyes as if to concentrate. "But it's really strong. It's getting worse." The room was now a symphony of concern. Grandma crossed herself. Uncle Roberto frowned. Cousin Carla was already rifling through her purse for painkillers. My promotion, the center of attention just moments ago, was forgotten, washed away by the tidal wave of Emma's latest crisis. I kept smiling, playing my part, but inside I was a cold, calm observer. I was watching a master at work, every moan, and wince a carefully chosen note in her performance. My dad asked the sacred question, the one that was part of our family's strange liturgy. "On a scale of 1 to 10? Emma paused, a brilliant touch that made it seem like a genuine assessment. "An 8, she finally gasped. "Maybe a 9. Of course. It was never a 7, never a 10. Always an 8 or a 9. Serious enough to warrant a panic, but not so over the top as to seem ridiculous. I watched our family's dynamic reorganize itself around her. Aunt Sandra started recounting her own bout with kidney stones. Grandma muttered about that poor girl and all she'd suffered as a baby. My night was officially over. "Mom," Emma whimpered, "I think I need to lie down." And then, as my mother rushed to her side, Emma did it. She looked right at me. Just for a split second, when she was sure no one else could see, her eyes met mine, and the corner of her mouth twitched into a tiny, triumphant smile. "Maybe we should take her to the ER," Mom said, her voice tight with worry. "Sarah, can you drive? I'm too shaken up." That's when something inside me, something that had been bending for years, finally snapped. It wasn't anger. It was colder, sharper, and far more determined. As everyone stood up, ready to transform my celebration into another fruitless night in a hospital waiting room, I stood with them. But instead of reaching for my car keys, I picked up my phone from the table. "Wait," I said, and my voice was surprisingly steady. Everyone froze. Emma looked at me, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of something new in her eyes, suspicion, and the first seeds of fear. "Sarah, this isn't the time," she said, her suffering sister voice firmly back in place. "I'm in a lot of pain." "I know exactly how much pain you're in, Emma," I replied, unlocking my phone. "And I know exactly when it's going to stop." Aunt Sandra frowned. "Sarah, what on earth are you talking about?" I held my phone aloft. "I made a video 20 minutes ago. I think you all need to see it." Emma went completely still. Her hand was still glued to her right side, her face still a mask of pain, but the performance had lost its fluidity. She looked like a statue. "What video?" my mom asked, torn between her worry for Emma and her confusion at my behavior. My eyes were still locked with Emma's. I saw the moment the ground truly fell out from under her. "A video that explains everything," I said, and I pressed play. My own recorded voice, clear and confident, filled the silent dining room. "It's 6:40 p.m. on Sunday. In 20 minutes, I'm going to make a fake announcement about a promotion at work during family dinner. When I do this, Emma will wait for the applause to die down. Then, she'll hold the right side of her body and call for Mom. She'll rate her pain as an 8 or a 9. She'll ask to lie down, and if she follows her usual pattern, she'll suggest going to the hospital in about 15 minutes. The silence that followed was so absolute I could hear the hum of the refrigerator. Every single pair of eyes in the room swiveled from my phone to Emma, who was now pale and rigid. "She always holds her right side." My recorded voice continued, merciless in its clarity. "Headache, stomach ache, kidney pain, it doesn't matter. It's always the right. She always calls for Mom first. And she always recovers in 2 to 3 hours. Just long enough to ruin whatever important thing is happening to me." My grandmother was the first to find her voice. "Emma, is this true?" Emma tried to rally. The show, after all, had to go on. I don't know what she's talking about," she stammered, trying to inject a tremor back into her words. "I'm really in pain. Don't any of you believe me? I'm not finished," I said, pausing the video. That was just the preview. I navigated to a folder on my phone, a collection of evidence I had meticulously gathered for months. "Do you all want to see what really happened at my high school graduation?" "Sarah, stop it," Emma whispered, but the fragile tone was gone, replaced by something sharp and desperate. I played the next file. It was security camera footage from my high school, obtained through a friend who worked in the office. The timestamp was 5 minutes before the graduation ceremony began. The video showed Emma, alone in a side hallway. She checked her phone, then looked around to make sure she was unobserved. And then, in the reflection of a glass trophy case, she began to practice. She contorted her face into various expressions of pain, testing out which grimace looked the most convincing. A collective, sharp intake of breath went around the table. "My God," Aunt Sandra murmured, her hand flying to her mouth. "There's more," I said coldly, moving to the next file. "Remember when my boyfriend, Jake, broke up with me? When he said I was a cruel, heartless sister who wished Emma would just die." Emma's face was as white as the tablecloth. "Sarah, don't. These are the original messages she sent to Jake, pretending to be me." I displayed the screenshots I'd managed to recover from a backup of her phone. "Look at the timestamps." She waited until I left the house to get on my computer and create fake accounts. She even studied my class schedule to know when I'd be gone. My dad took the phone from my hands, his own hands trembling slightly as he scrolled through the messages. His expression grew darker with each false sentence I had supposedly written. "She created a whole fake profile with my pictures," I continued, added Jake, and fed him this poison. "And when he confronted me, she played the shocked, hurt sister, suggesting I must have let a mean friend use my computer." "Emma," my mother said, her voice a broken whisper, "tell me this isn't true." "But it is," I said, feeling a dark, long-awaited sense of vindication. "And there's more." I opened an audio file. "This is Emma on the phone with her friend Beatrice last week." Emma's voice, bright and conspiratorial, filled the room. "It's so easy, B. You just have to know the right buttons to push. Mom totally freaks if I say it's a headache on my right side. But if I say it's my stomach, she takes a bit longer to react. And it always works best when Sarah's having a good day. Then everyone feels sorry for me and gets mad at her for being so insensitive." Beatrice's giggle was clear. You're terrible, Em. But your sister is kinda annoying anyway. She always acts like she's so perfect. She was always the favorite. Emma's recorded voice continued. Always had everything so easy. At least this way, I can make them pay attention to me, too. And it's honestly fun to watch her get all frustrated. The silence that followed was heavier than any I'd ever felt. Emma was trembling now, for real. Emma, my grandmother said, her voice laden with a disappointment that seemed to crush the air in the room. How could you? There's more. I pressed on, relentless. Do you want to see the video from my 18th birthday party, when she fainted? This time, Emma tried to bolt. She pushed her chair back, but Uncle Roberto placed a firm hand on her shoulder. I think you need to stay and hear this, Emma, he said, his voice low. The video played. It showed Emma, 10 minutes before her grand entrance, hidden behind a large barbecue grill in the backyard. She was practicing fainting. She'd lean one way, then another, testing the drop onto the grass, checking which angle looked the most dramatic and felt the least painful. She spent a full 15 minutes rehearsing her collapse. Cousin Carla let out a sound that was half gasp, half disbelieving laugh. Emma, this is sick. It's not sick, I corrected, putting my phone down. It's calculated. She turned manipulation into a science. That's when Emma broke. Okay, damn it. You want the truth. I faked it. I faked it a few times. But you have no idea what it's like. The tears started, but these were tears of rage, of someone whose game was finally up. Do you know what it's like to live in perfect Sarah's shadow? Sarah the soccer star, Sarah the honor student, Sarah who got into college. I was just the sickly one, the one who almost died. The only time anyone ever looked at me was when I was in that hospital bed. So you decided to sabotage me? I shot back, my voice icy. To destroy my relationships and ruin every good thing that ever happened to me? You had everything, she screamed, all pretense gone. Everything came so easy for you. And me. The only thing that worked was being sick. But you weren't sick, my father said, his voice dangerously quiet. You've been lying. For years. And you were systematically torturing your sister in the process. My mother added, fresh tears streaming down her face. Emma, the cruelty. How could you? Cruel. Emma let out a bitter, broken laugh. You want to know what's cruel? It's growing up watching your sister get a standing ovation for breathing, while you have to be on death's door for anyone to even notice you're in the room. You haven't been near death's door in 5 years. I exploded. You were acting. You were lying. Because it worked. Because it was the only thing that did work, she screamed back. Uncle Roberto stood slowly. I think I should go, he said, deeply uncomfortable. No, I said firmly. Everyone should stay. Because we're not done. I turned my gaze back to Emma, who looked at me with pure terror. Why don't you tell them about the money, Emma? A fresh wave of dread washed over her face. What money? My mom asked. The money for her medicine, I said. Those expensive prescriptions the doctor supposedly called in. The ones she said insurance wouldn't cover. My dad looked like he'd been physically struck. Emma, tell me you didn't. She spent it on makeup, on clothes, on nights out with her friends. I continued. I have the bank statements. I have the photos of her purchases she posted online. You gave her over $3,000 in the last 6 months alone. $3,000, my grandmother repeated, incredulous. Which she spent on everything but medicine. I finished, because she didn't need any. Because she was never sick. Emma dissolved into sobs, but this time, no one moved to comfort her. An invisible wall had gone up around her. 15 years, my mother whispered, her face ashen. 15 years of believing you, of worrying, of canceling plans, of losing sleep. And I lost 15 years of my life, I said, my voice cracking for the first time. 15 years of being treated like the villain. 15 years of watching my milestones get trampled. 15 years of being told I didn't have enough compassion for my sick sister. Emma lifted her tear-streaked face. Sarah, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You're sorry now, I said, the bitterness rising in my throat. Now that you're caught. Aunt Sandra shook her head in disgust, pushing her chair back from the table. Emma, I don't even know what to say. This is monstrous. You all see now, I said, looking at each of their horrified faces in turn. You see who she really is. You see what she's done to me, to this family for years. Emma tried to stand again, but my mother held her arm, not with comfort, but with restraint. No, Mom said, her voice firmer than I'd heard it in a decade. You're going to sit here. You're going to listen to all of it. You're going to face what you've done. In that moment, I knew I had won. It wasn't just about exposure. It was about justice. The truth was finally out, stark and undeniable. But I wasn't done. There was one last card to play, the one that would seal her fate completely. There's one more thing, I said, pulling a chair over and sitting directly in front of her. The final piece of the puzzle. Emma looked at me with red-rimmed, desperate eyes. All the fight had left her. Sarah, please. They get it. They understand. No, they don't understand everything, I replied, picking up my phone again. Because they don't know about Mike. The name landed in the silent room like a bomb. Emma went deathly pale. Mike! Your ex-fiancé, my mom asked, confused. But he moved to Denver for that job? No, I said, my gaze fixed on Emma. We broke up because my dear little sister decided she wanted him for herself. And he was weak enough to fall for it. Emma began to shake. Sarah, don't show them. Show them what, Emma? I said, my voice dangerously soft. Show them the messages you sent him? The photos. What photos? My dad's voice was a low growl. Mike was going to propose to me, I explained, savoring the horrible truth. He told me he was looking at rings. And our sweet Emma couldn't let that happen, could she? So she started messaging him. First, it was just concern for our relationship, suggesting I wasn't ready. Then the photos started. I opened the folder and showed the screenshots I had begged Mike for after our devastating breakup. Photos of Emma in lingerie. Provocative selfies. Messages detailing a long-standing crush. Aunt Sandra made a sound of pure disgust. Emma, that is despicable. And it worked, I continued, the old heartbreak a dull ache beneath the cold fury. Mike started responding. They started meeting up. She'd tell you all she had a doctor's appointment and go straight to his apartment. My grandmother covered her face with her hands. Oh, dear Lord. But you know the most pathetic part. I let out a bitter laugh. She only lost interest in him when she saw I was going to be okay without him. When I landed a great job and was actually happy on my own. When she realized her little scheme hadn't destroyed me after all. Emma found her voice, a broken whisper. Sarah, I was confused. You were what, Emma? I exploded, jumping to my feet. You were confused. You were sick. No. You just can't stand the sight of me being happy. You want to be me. But here's a truth that's going to hurt more than any of your fake pain. The room was utterly silent, waiting. You will never be me. You couldn't even fill my shadow. Do you want to know the real difference between us? When I want something, I work for it. I earn it. I build my life with my own two hands. You're just a hollow, pathetic creature who only knows how to steal and break what other people have built. You're so empty that the only way you can feel full is by taking chunks out of my life. Sarah, please, she whimpered. Please, nothing. I shouted, years of pent-up rage, finally breaking free. You destroyed 3 of my relationships. 3. Jake with your lies, Tyler with the fake cheating scandal, and now Mike. 3 men I loved, gone, because you can't stand to see someone love me. Do you know what Mike told me when I confronted him? He said you told him I never really loved him, that I was just using him. You poisoned him against me while you were sneaking into his bed. That's not true, she shrieked. Of course it's not true. I roared back. But you planted the doubt. You seduced him when he was vulnerable. You systematically took apart the most serious relationship I've ever had because the thought of someone choosing me over you was unbearable. Uncle Roberto stood up again, his face grim. I can't listen to any more of this. Emma, this is pathological. One by one, my family members began to rise, their expressions a mixture of horror, disgust, and profound shame. But before they could leave, I raised my voice one last time. Wait! I want you all to look at her. Really look at her. Emma was curled in on herself in the chair, sobbing uncontrollably, a small, broken figure. Look at the girl you coddled. The one you spoiled. The one you let torture me for years. Look closely at the monster you helped create. Sarah, my mother began, but I cut her off. No. You will hear this. You will hear all of it. I turned my back on Emma and faced my family. And all of you, who always took her side, who always made me feel like I was the problem. I hope you're proud. This is your daughter, your granddaughter, your niece. This is what you created. My grandmother was weeping openly. Sarah, we didn't know. You didn't want to know. I fired back. It was easier to believe I was the cold, jealous sister than to admit your precious Emma was a lying, manipulative snake. I grabbed my purse and walked toward the door. I stopped with my hand on the knob and looked back at Emma one final time. She seemed to have shrunk, diminished by the sheer weight of her own deceptions. Congratulations, Emma, I said, my voice cold and clear. You finally got what you always wanted. You're the absolute center of attention. Everyone is looking at you. I paused, letting the words hang in the air. Too bad it's for all the wrong reasons. I yanked the door open. Where are you going? My mother cried. Away from here, I said without turning around. Away from this toxic house, these twisted games, and especially away from her. I pointed behind me, not even granting Emma a final glance. I'm going to build a life where people like her can't ever reach me again. The door slammed shut behind me with a finality that shook the frame. But not before I heard Emma scream. A raw, guttural sound of real agony, not the fake kind she'd practiced in the mirror. It was the sound of a carefully constructed world shattering into a million pieces. And for the first time in 15 years, the sound of my sister's pain didn't make me feel guilty. It set me free.